Steven Kukas, aka DM Armada, because you are absolutely one of the best Kano aficionados out there. Prism, that's my flavor. So let's get to work here. It's Nigel, Theo versus Alexander Vore on the bottom is playing Prism. And already at 30 health, no, that's not the way it goes. It's a little bit of an inversion here because Kano at 40 health seems like cheating. But yeah, so a little bit of a misstep here. Prism is Prism's at 40, Kano's at 30. But right away, we're going to see the Prism player come out with Parable of Humility. But Parable of Humility against Kano is kind of, it's more so, it's just it's a formality. It's an aura.
Yeah. You put it in there because it can attack for one like a weird Kadachi, right? But in this matchup, it's going to mean very little, particularly if Kano chooses not to run the one-of attack action, which we sometimes see, and not many people do in Classic Constructed. But you can still run it. He's going to choose to banish, I believe, off the top a Reverberate. Then he's going to pitch again to take a peek off of the top. He's going to banish a Lesson in Lava. This is some fun stuff. Now, by the way, I just want to point this out. This is all on turn 0. And this is all occurring, I believe, unless we missed it, this is all occurring on Nigel's turn after he chose to play the Parable.
Yeah, a lot of the action and the nitty-gritty is going to happen with the passing of priorities in this. You know, it's just like this hot potato of passing back and forth. We won't even know what state we're in at a certain point in this case. But as you can see, it started with the presentation of a Parable of Humility and an attack, and this is the...
Would you like to respond? Why, yes, sir. I would like to respond on turn 0. I'm going to Crucible into a Lesson in Lava for 4, force a pitch here, make you use some Null Rune, but move right on ahead with our lives. He's going to take a point here, and we flipped it. Perfect. Now everything matches. Look, so on the bottom we have Alex Vore and playing Kano, and then on top Nigel there.
So here we are. Okay, so this all started with that it might as well have been completely textless of a Parable of Humility placed on the board, presenting 1 damage, and look what occurs. Again, the fact that Kano is an instant speed kind of hero playing on both turns, and it's just off to the races here as, frankly, Prism presented the first damage, but took the first damage as well.
Yeah, so here we have Lesson in Lava connecting allows Alex to go and search his deck for a wizard card with cost equal to or less than the damage dealt. He dealt 1, so he could pull any 1 or 0 cost card from the deck, and he's choosing to... there's a lot of options that you can pick in this scenario. On turn 0 here, this is a fine choice, a really, really good choice. You're going to take that card, put it on the top of the deck, picking Tome of Aetherwind. This signals that he has a blue, which he does, so that he can pitch and then choose to play Tome off the top, and he's choosing draw 2 so he can draw 2 cards. If he draws 2 blues, he can continue to pitch off the top of his deck and use cards at instant speed off the top. He's going to do that. He's going to pitch. He's going to look. He's going to banish that. Now, he does still have a Reverberate. Not sure if it's yellow or if it's blue. He also has a blue zap there as well. There's so many interesting choices here, depending on what that other card is, but it is just a blue snapback. I believe that is blue, so he's going to come in with Reverberate just for 1. Does really nothing in this scenario, and then throw a zap at him, so dealing 2 extra damage.
During ProQuest season, I was on Prism for a few of the tournaments, and I did run into a Kano, and it was fascinating. The game was over very quickly. We actually played 2. We played another one just afterwards. But, you think that a hero like Prism that can generate a lot of Spectral Shields, that can soak up a lot of damage, you don't necessarily need Arcane Barrier, but there is Arcane Barrier there. As you can see, the full kit, well, minus the tunic, but you do have the Crown of Reflection, you do have the gloves and the boots.
Right.
Is that good enough?
So here's the interesting thing, and I was actually going to ask your opinion on this. How do you feel as the Prism player playing against a Kano, knowing that Kano is pretty squishy and doesn't have a lot of Phantasm poppers? Do you feel comfortable? Because if they're playing Aggro Herald's Prism, the Kano player does not necessarily enjoy that matchup.
Yeah, well, in this case, what you're doing is there's a lot of those auras that really are... They do not present any factor. You're not having any of your auras popped or anything. So coming in at instant speed, having a Genesis early is also very helpful as well when the turn does come back to you. But having a three iterations of Arcane Barrier is certainly helpful.
Yes.
But the question is how many blues are in that Prism deck? How many efficient pitches can you do to really absorb all of that damage? It's really a matter in those games that I played was finding opportunities where I can actually attack. But one thing that I did learn was holding a blue to absorb some of that arcane was very important.
Yeah, see, here we have Aether Flare buffing up a Foreboding Bolt off the top. It was a blue Foreboding Bolt, so this actually does present extra damage. Now, my question for you about how you feel as Aggro Herald's Prism is a key one, because if you're Kano, in my perspective, perhaps, and you see 3 Arcane Barrier across the table, that could signal that they're playing, like, the version of Prism that doesn't have enough sideboard cards to actually present a bunch of Herald's damage. And they're playing just the normal blue heavy-ish aura build, which feels a lot better to play into as Kano than Herald Prisms does.
The one thing that Kano's going to be really hoping to dodge here is if the Prism player can find 1, 2, 3 of those Heralds of Erudition.
Exactly.
Those are the most dangerous cards,
yes,
because it's not just a matter of doing the damage and going to soul. It's just refilling the hand in a situation where the Kano player has no way to pop it,
yep,
and no real efficient way to block it.
Alex here deciding to whether or not he wants to banish off the top. He chose to Kano. Kano, if you don't know anything about Wizard, let me give you a quick just rundown. Kano is a wizard, and he has an ability that says pay 3 resources. At any instant speed, you can look at the top card of your deck, and if it's a non-attack, you can banish it and then play it. On your opponent's turn, on your turn as well. You could do it on your turn as well. You could do it multiple times, and that's what we see here. Here we have a really fantastic draw, and there's some really tricky stuff that you can do as Kano. So here we have a Gaze the Ages being banished and a Chain Lightning being banished, and we'll see if he takes a specific line, but there's some really nasty stuff that you can do in response to your own instant speed triggers.
Imagine having that kind of arrogance. You could already look at Kano and see he's got that smug grin on his face. Imagine have the arrogance of responding to your own responses.
So he's going to play Chain Lightning, and then he's going to respond to Chain Lightning with his own Gaze the Ages, which allows him to opt to. And Gaze the Ages sees that Chain Lightning has been played. So when Gaze the Ages resolves, it will come back into Alex's hand and be a blue card in his hand, which is fantastic because then you can Kano. After Gaze the Ages is resolved, then Chain Lightning's effect will, play out, and it will allow him to play a card from his hand at instant speed. But because another wizard non-attack was played, it will also deal arcane damage in this scenario. So a really fun combo, and he's going to play a Gaze the Ages again to opt to again.
I have to ask you here, in this case, again, you're talking about the importance of Kano's ability, pitching 3 to be able to go ahead and play off the top of your deck if necessary. How many blues are in a standard 60-card set here? It seems like it's such an important engine piece to being able to rip these off.
Yeah.
And, I mean, when you're playing blue, obviously you're kind of you're shaving away some of the damage output, but the consistency of being able to Kano reliably. How many blues? How much percentage of the deck is blue?
So roughly half of the deck is blue, but there have been changes over the course of I'd say a couple of months, and sort of iterations on the deck where people are actually taking out blues slowly but surely and adding more damage in, like you said, more reds going into the deck so that they can present a bunch more damage and be able to kind of combo off on all these like 0 cost, 1 cost stuff, all one after the other, so they don't necessarily have to play as many blues to pay for things. They're just doing it for Kanos. Here he has Blazing Aether coming down, Kanoing again, hitting a Sonic Boom.
This is looking real spicy right out of the gate here. Again, when it comes down to these matches, Prism very adept at absorbing damage, be it through Spectral Shields, blocking, etc., pitching a lot of those high-value cards. However, in this case, this is a pretty potent chain of events here.
And it looks like he's playing the Blazing Aether, and then he Kano'd off the top to get the Sonic Boom in response to the Blazing Aether. So Blazing Aether has not yet resolved, and it will check at the end of the turn, or at the end of its resolution, to see how much arcane damage has been dealt, and then it'll deal that amount of damage.
Yeah.
So with Sonic Boom still on the stack being resolved, if the Prism player allows this to hit, not only is that damage going to factor into Blazing Aether, but it's also going to do its own effect as well. So incredibly complex play right here.
And like some of these very intricate interactions and such, that little flip over, like, let me read that card, you want to double check it? Yeah, you might need a little bit of a guide when it comes to this. And take a look at that pitch zone for the Kano player, Alexander Vore, looking like he's undergoing a deck check.
That's right. This is the other cool thing that you can do as Kano, is as you're pitching this, you arrange your pitch. Oh my goodness, he hits a Blazing Aether off the top as well. So Blazing Aether into Blazing Aether. He's going to choose not to play it right away. He's going to banish it and then play it after this first Blazing Aether. And then the second one comes in and double stacks the Blazings. How fun is Kano?
Kano is a lot of fun, and I don't think I have the amount of connected neurons in my brain to adequately play this.
And see, here he's going to rearrange his pitch so that when it goes to the bottom of the deck, he can memorize the order of cards based on cue cards that he draws into so that he knows when damage cycles back around and is able to present itself again. So you can Kano off the top again.
And all this was occurring, in a situation where the Prism player seems like, okay, I did one thing. Like, I did one thing. Could it be my turn right now?
Yeah.
And as you see, I think in this case, the Prism player is, the Prism's already at 20, which in my experiences as Prism against Kano,
dangerous.
It is incredibly dangerous because of those crazy turns that you can have, but this is how you have to respond. You have to be aggressive here. You have to start loading your soul, and you need to start attacking and exploiting the vulnerability of Kano, which is that diminished life total.
That is true. That is exactly true. Pushing physical attacks like this are dangerous, clearly dangerous as far as playing into Kano is concerned. Like, this is what you want to present. You want to present loads of damage and make them take. But in this scenario, you're feeling pretty comfortable if you are Kano, and you just let this hit, let it go to the soul. It's not presenting much in the way of other damage. This does push one physical, pushing the parable out there for the damage. And Alex looks content to take this because he has a 4-card hand and possibly a nice little setup. He wants to arsenal the most likely want to arsenal the Aether Wildfire that is in his hand.
In this case, again, Parable of Humility, just there for formalities. It's just there to exist on the board. What Nigel now needs to do is, again, push that damage and be able to, a lot of the times when you think you have lethal against the Kano player, they'll be able to respond to that last sort of second of damage and just go off. But maintaining a blue source in that pivotal turn is incredibly important, especially with 3 Arcane Barriers. Now, there's a Spectral Shield, which is going to be important, and a Shimmers.
Yes.
So finally, a little bit of presence on the board, which, frankly, a Kano player is not going to really care about. Those auras that are on the board, the Kano player doesn't necessarily have an opportunity or even a method to attack those.
Well, no, they don't. And this is a heads-up moment right here because we've seen, to a certain degree, the composition of Alex's hand. And by playing the Shimmers, you're basically saying my turn is done unless you want to do something. So that's actually a moment where you're wide open as the Kano player to consider, like Kanoing off the top, playing Blazing Aether off the boots, things like that. And Blazing Aether is just an incredibly powerful card for Kano. It is the card that you look for now. It used to be this card called Forked Lightning that you could play off of Stir the Aether Winds, but now it is all about Aether Wildfire, jamming that down, making just a huge go-wide turn, and we do see Alex does have 1 in his hand. He also has what looked like a beautiful cold foil Potion of Deja Vu as well, which could come down on this turn and allow him to set up for a later turn. Pitching a Scour here. That is one way to deal with auras. You could play Scour.
Off the top here, again, we saw how much was done in terms of pitching earlier on and being able to stack that for reliability and late-game consistency, but it's the early first few turns that are really up in the air.
Choosing to banish what looks like a red Blazing Aether. He's going to pitch away the Deja Vu, Potion Deja Vu, and Crucible another Aether Flare. Has 2 Aether Flares sort of available. One of them is coming in for 4, and this one could go Aether Flare and then buff the second Aether Flare, which looks like that's exactly what he's doing.
So pitching blue here, the 3 Arcane Barrier and the Spectral Shield will clean that up, but another case of the exact same attack here is going to really put Nigel in a situation. The colors in the hand here, again, you have the Arcane Barrier set up, so you're feeling kind of comfortable. Spectral Shields can also soak up a lot of that damage, but in reality, there's another pitch of 3, and this is very important in terms of just making sure that you're absorbing as much of this damage, because oftentimes, Armada, when it comes down to those big, wide turns, soaking up and canceling a lot of that arcane damage early it does reverberate towards the end of the turn as well.
Right.
It has significant implications.
That's right. And this is Alex is totally content with everything that played out because all of that was presenting damage, taking cards from the hand of the Prism player, and then arsenaling your key combo piece, which is fantastic. Oh, and he's just going to jam down a Haze Bending as well, which is going to basically say, do you want to present any instant speed shenanigans? And if so, then I have to deal with it with a 2-card hand?
Yeah, this is basically like, you're saying, all right, goodbye, see you later. Like, trying to hang up the phone, and this is that opportunity for Alex to just say, all right, you're passing priority. This is my time to shine. Spotlight on me. Let's see what we can pull off. Because, frankly, there's no more actions. That's an aura. It's an action. It's no go again. You just jam it on the board. And, again, what damage is he presenting? Nigel's bread and butter here in terms of actually presenting Alex a situation where he has to potentially block or giving some sort of pressure. That's pocketed in the Heralds. Auras are not how you win this matchup. It's a slower burn, but frankly, you need to, I think what Nigel might be waiting for is, okay, Heralds of Protection, Heralds, the Erudition, these are the cards I'm hunting for here.
Alex choosing to just let the turn end on Nigel's side so that he can play on his own turn, which is honestly a very smart, very solid play. Playing on your opponent's turn is really fun, especially when you first pick up Kano. It's really fun to say, all right, now I'm going to play on your turn and watch this and then do some stuff, and then you draw up on your own turn. And it's like, okay, I could have probably done those things on my own turn, drawn up, and then presented even more on my opponent's turn. And so he's choosing to do that. He's going Reverberate, which I believe he's pitched for, but it did hit, allowing him to play another Reverberate. Pitched for that as well. Threatening playing something from hand, but again, just presenting damage. Presenting damage that's uncomfortable to deal with if you are not used to playing Kano.
Kano players strike me as the type there, you invite your buddy over to play Mario Brothers and whatever. You get your first time, you die, you pass a controller. When they die, they're like, well, that doesn't count, so let me take another turn. Like, they're playing on your turn as well. Those are the types of Kano players. Sorry, I get hounded all the time about this, about pronunciation of Mario versus Mario.
You're a Mario Brothers guy?
I'm a Mario. Listen,
okay.
Hey, listen, I'm a product of where I grew up, all right? It's Mario, it's Mario.
I'm not hating on that. You can pronounce
I
it
got a
that way.
whisper in my ear from certain people. It's all good.
It wasn't me. I didn't say it.
No, you don't whisper.
I don't. I yelled loudly. No. Wartoon Herald Blue coming across for 5. Again, this is one of those moments where you don't, as the Kano player, necessarily mind taking damage here, but if you have a value block in hand, and if you're just trying to set up, like, I'm going to play on my turn, I'm going to play this on-hit effect scary thing, choosing to just block with one of those beautiful extended art wildfires. Now, this is a key signal. If you're choosing to block with a wildfire, then as your opponent, I'm thinking, okay, then you definitely have a wildfire or something of just as much value in the arsenal, because you blocked with 2 of probably the best arsenal cards in your entire deck in Wildfire and Tome of Fiendal. Fiendal? I don't know what you go for.
It's one of those. It depends what dialect you're speaking, right? If you're speaking English or so gibberish. It's one of the two. Nonetheless, so there's a very important part here that I want to get to is the fact that, blocking out the Herald is important because there's nothing currently in Soul.
Yeah.
If that Herald hits, you put it in Soul, you now gives you an outlet to pitch yellow in order to activate the go-agains on all of your auras, which allows you then to really pressure the Kano.
Yeah.
So, right now, Wartoon into Wartoon is very good, but frankly, I believe that Alex here is more concerned about trying to avoid a situation where Nigel has an opportunity now to attack more than once per turn, when that finally comes back to him in that regard. Being able to, not only that, but creating Spectral Shields soaks up a lot of that arcane damage.
I think that's the biggest thing. I think that giving him too many soul options and too many options of blocking your arcane damage with Spectrals plus pitching is the danger. Because you're trying to set up your combo turn, you're trying to set up a kill turn. You have the piece. Now you just need to draw into like a heavy blue hand, or a variety of like blazing into something else. And he's already used 2 blazing, so he has to think his part through. And this is a fantastic way to set it up, a kill turn by coming across with Aether. Why did I blank on the name? This is one of my favorite cards. Goodness gracious, it's Aether Spindle, everybody. Huge shout out to Kel, Mr. Red Zone Rogue. I looked right at him and I said I blanked, and he just came right out with Aether Spindle. I feel so bad, but he got my back.
Yeah, but
Aether Spindle.
Do you see the disappointment in his eyes when
I
he
did.
saw that you
just
couldn't
for
get
a
it?
moment.
Yeah, there's a little bit of respect lost
wow.
there.
And the respect for the Aether Spindle stopping everything by making 3 Spectrals. I believe he stops all damage. This is one of those cards, Aether Spindle, and I personally played in my Blitz deck, I played every copy that I possibly could because Aether Spindle allowing you to hit and then opt is just backbreaking, absolutely backbreaking.
Prismatic Shield, an MVP when it comes to this matchup, being able to just add instant speed, respond, and drop 3 Spectral Shields, which again, it doesn't matter about arcane damage. It'll just absorb whatever damage is possible. And if there's anything that's left over, it exists on the board as another threat if possible.
Stopping the opt there was huge. That was absolutely huge. Coming across with just a single Shimmer's attack for 2. Shimmer's buffing itself.
So I have a little bit of a curiosity here, because in terms of this matchup, if you're completely dead set that none of those auras are going to get popped, I prefer the option of stacking one super high, because in the rare case, or I don't say rare, but in a certain case where you only are afforded 1 attack, a 2 attack and a 2 attack, if all those counters were on 1, now it's just 1 attack of 4.
The danger is that your opponent, in this case, has an exact, just kill card in Scour, which can destroy 0 cost and token auras. So they would be able to pay for it. So spreading it around also makes a nice little argument, because if you have a bunch of 2s, they have to pitch into Scour more to destroy more auras. Rather than you stack it up to 4, okay, I just destroy that with Scour. That's good value for me. And here, just the combo of these auras actually paying off and dealing just chip damage, making Alex think about whether or not he actually has the time to block. Going to pitch here for the Eye of Ophidia trigger first, but I would imagine pitching for Kano.
Thinking here, it looks like Alex is in a situation where perhaps he can really pop off here. And the tough part about a Kano player playing against a Prism player also is the fact that, anybody can jam the Null Rune and have that full kit. But Prism has another outlet to absorb damage with those Prismatic Shields. So there's, with those Spectral Shields. So it's really, it's a little bit of an uphill climb for a Kano player, but it's definitely not undoable.
Okay, so here he banished the Sonic Boom. He's going to use Talismanic Lens as well to opt 2, because this could either be just a nice value turn, or it could win him the game, because we know what's in his arsenal. It is Wildfire, which will buff based on how much damage it deals. We know that Nigel has no resources floating except the Tunic. So if, Alex pushes 5 damage, which is easy with Wildfire, everything after this will be buffed by 4. This could be a 100% kill turn if the right thing is on the top of the deck. And it looks like he's eyeing a Tome of Aetherwind, and I can't quite make out the second card, but if Sonic Boom hits, it would go and get the Tome, which could draw him cards. It could buff. There's a variety of lines that can get you to 19, and that is all you're calculating right now, how to get to 19.
Is Nigel out of cards? I believe Nigel's out of cards.
Yes, he's face up. That's exactly it.
This is green means go, man. This is
it's just count to 19. Well, really, in this case, it's count to 20.
Yeah, no, basically, this is a situation Alexander cleared for landing, buzz the tower, go the holy 9 yards, right? So
he's pitching, paying the Tunic resource as well.
And this is the tough part, because Nigel now is just a passenger on this journey. He's just there as a spectator. He's got to see if Alex can convert here, because, like I said, no cards left means nothing else can stop this.
Right, but now, because of the composition of Alex's hand, it looks like he had another Wildfire in hand, which meant it was a red. It looks like both of those are red, actually. So he had a red-heavy hand, and trying to piece this together with a red-heavy hand is just not going to happen when you don't have an energy potion on the board, because you need the resources to pay. He's going to, there it is. He's going to choose the draw 2 option, play a Tome of Fionn, draw 2 as well. With 2 floating, if he draws into a bunch of blues here, he has a real shot at cracking the boots, sending over the Wildfire, and then Sonic Booming off the back of that.
So here goes. He's going to figure this out right now. Like you mentioned, this is where the creative accounting. You need to know not just about the cards in your hand, but all the potential possibilities.
So here he goes. He's going to crack the Storm Striders, allowing him to play a card at instant speed from his hand or arsenal. He's going to play the Crucible of Aetherweave to buff his next arcane damage. What's he going to come across with? I mean, it just makes sense, right? So that wonderful Aether Wildfire you arsenaled maybe 3 or 4 turns ago, coming across for 5 like we talked about. You can stop exactly one of those, and you have to do it right now because everything is going to snowball from here. He moves the Tunic counter off to stop. It deals 4 damage, which means this Sonic Boom is a casual 7 arcane.
And, honestly, stop me, ladies and gentlemen out there, if you've been in this position where it's just a matter of watching, a movie unfold, and you're, just hoping for a happy ending.
Oh, my God. He plays off the top for another one. And another one. He comes across at the end, and that Sonic Boom off the top being grabbed by another Sonic Boom. Absolutely insane finish.